Okay, we're talking about our third of three investment options now. Shares, or otherwise known as stocks. And as far as I'm aware, there's nothing really different between the two. They're just two different words to really describe the same thing, which is basically ownership in a company. Okay, so when you buy shares in, let's say, BHP, the big mining company, you now own a small fraction of that company. And there are two ways to make a return on that investment that you make, either via dividends or the increase in share price. So two different ways, and you may have a scenario whereby both options occur. You receive dividends during the time that you own the shares, and also the shares increase in price. Or there may be an example where you don't receive dividends, but you do get an increase in share price. The famous company Amazon, for example, doesn't pay any dividends, but the share price has increased rapidly in the last 10 years or so. And dividends, as we saw in video 2 by Investopedia, they are a distribution of the profits of the company. So any leftover money made by profits can be then given back to the shareholders as cash, and that's called dividends, and that's usually biannually, so every 6 months. Okay, so they're the two different ways that you get a return on your investment. Let's do an example question now. Okay, this question here, John owns 10 shares in BHP, which has a current share price of $30 per share. So let's just have a look at these two numbers first. 10 shares and $30 per share. So one share costs $30, therefore 10 shares will cost 10 times 30. So the amount invested by John is actually $300. That's how much is invested into BHP, but it's known as owning 10 shares at a current market price, which is on the Australian Stock Exchange, of $30 per share. A couple of questions here. The first one is about dividends, and the second one is about an increase in share price, otherwise known as a capital gain. So the first one, BHP issues a dividend, issues just a bit of a fancy word for pays out to their shareholders, every 6 months of 50 cents per share. How much does John earn from his BHP shares per year via dividends? Well, John owns 10 shares, so that'll be 10 multiplied by 50 cents, and that is equal to $5, but that is every 6 months, so that's per 6 months. So therefore, per year will equal 2 times 5, because there's obviously 12 months in a year, so this will occur twice. So every year, is as long as BHP keep their dividend payouts the same, because that's not necessarily the case, they fluctuate depending on how profitable the company is that year, John will receive $10 per year. Still keeps his $300 as the ownership of the company, but the dividend that he receives back will be $10. Now, question 2, which can be in addition to the dividend, the share price increases to $40 per share over a 5-year period, which is good news for John. So if I have a look at the graph, let's say this is time and this is share price. Over time, it's gone up, which is good to see. How much does John make in a capital gain? Well, at the start, we identified that John had $300 invested. Now, after 5 years, still owns 10 shares, but it's now $40 per share. So the value of the shares that John owns will be 10 multiplied by 40 this time, will equal 400. So how much does John make as a capital gain? Well, it went from 300 to 400, so the difference will be the capital gain. It'll be 400 subtract 300, because that's how much it's increased. So he makes as a capital gain $100. Now that's in addition to the dividend. So let's just extend this a little bit further. Makes $100 in share price gain, and in that 5 years also makes $10 per year. So the total return, and now we're excluding any taxes at this point, we're going to get to that in the next topic, but the total return will equal $100 as the share price increase plus 10 times 5 years. So that'll be 50, so it'll be 150. That's how much return John gets from investing $300, which is 10 shares in BHP over the 5-year period. So this is investment option 3. So far we have covered term deposits, bonds, shares, and we have a couple of practice questions now on shares. And then after that, we're going to talk about how taxes influence the investment options. And then that leads into the final piece, which is deciding where to invest your inheritance money. Good luck with the practice questions.